Back to Built for Hard. This is episode 2, where we build stronger leaders, better stewards, better managers. This is episode 2, and due to some requests from a couple of you, I'm going to read an essay called Above the Waterline Leadership, Moving from Drama to Responsibility. Leadership, management, and as I like to call it, stewardship, is the queen piece of leadership. If you can master how to influence other people, how to get things done, and how to serve something greater than yourself in that process, you will know how to achieve your vision, materialize your vision, and turn that future that you're picturing into reality. Whatever you're building in your business, your career, and heck, even your life. This article goes into that messy human part of leadership because there's a moment that most of us know well, where pressure rises in the room, you feel the tension, your body tightens, your mind starts to race, stories start to form, and suddenly we're not leading from that best self. We're not leading from that influential self. We're not leading from a place of service. We're leading from a place of self-protection. We start defending, blaming, trying to fix, control. We're avoiding a conversation, or we're trying to prove ourselves. This essay uses the metaphor of the waterline. Above the waterline, we operate from responsibility, from curiosity, from learning, from possibility, from choice, creativity. Below the waterline, we move into a reactive leadership state, a reactive stewardship state. We drift into drama, defensiveness, threat, fear, reactivity. And the point is not to shame ourselves for going below the waterline. We all go there, and we all go there regularly. The real work is noticing faster when we go below the waterline, because effectiveness is reduced. Because if we have a purpose that we are clear on, if we have a vision that we can see, if we are driving a group of people forward, if we are driving a movement forward, then we need to exist above the waterline as much as possible, because we gain influence and we materialize our vision. We materialize what we see by staying above the waterline more often. I'll walk us through 3 common drama roles. When we show up under pressure, we move into the victim, the rescuer, or the villain, and then we'll shift those into 3 stronger responsibility roles. It's easier to transmute an energy when we know the right energy to transmute that negative energy into. So said another way, if I'm trying to move from depression into focused energy, that won't work. If I move from depression into peace, that can work. I write about this in my book, The Responsibility Ethic. I can move from anxiety into action because those 2 energy states are more related, they're more analogous, and you can shift from the negative high energy state into a positive high energy state. You can shift from a negative low energy state into a positive low energy state. It's the same way with the victim, rescuer, and villain, right? The victim can turn into the creator, the rescuer turns into the coach, and the villain turns into the challenger. We'll talk about that later. And this is really practical leadership work. That's the basis of Built for Hard and Vita, and the work that I'm doing to support leaders, to evolve into that next level of leadership that we call stewardship. Getting things done, influencing others in the service of something bigger than themselves. I like practical and pragmatic leadership work for a reason. Because it works. And this is also nervous system work. It gets you aligned into that ideal performance state so that you can get more of what you want and less of what you don't want. So all that being said, let's get into it. I'm going to load up the article, Above the Waterline Leadership, Move from Drama to Responsibility. And it starts with a quote. The work is not to never, and I wrote a double negative. I apologize to my grammar people, but the work is not to never go below the waterline. The work is to notice faster, recover better, and choose responsibly. There's a moment in leadership when your body knows it before your brain admits it. Your chest tightens, your breath gets shallow, your jaw locks, and your inner lawyer starts building the case. They should know better. This isn't my fault. I'm going to have to fix this. They just don't get it. That moment matters. Not because it means you're a bad leader. Not because it means you are emotionally immature. Not because you have failed. It means that you have dropped below the waterline. And if you lead people, build teams, run a business, manage pressure, carry responsibility for outcomes that truly matter, you will go below the waterline. The question is not whether it happens. The question is how quickly can you notice, recover, and choose a better response. And there's a worksheet that I uploaded where you can reflect on evolution into the creator, to the coach, or the challenger. You can use this reflection after your next hard meeting, a tense conversation, missed commitment, or a moment where you feel yourself getting reactive. So let's get into the quick answer. What is above the waterline leadership? If you know me, I'm an old rower. I still enjoy rowing, not at the level that I used to. I went to the Olympics a couple times. I did some very big rows into the middle of the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. That's why I love this metaphor of above the waterline leadership. We want to be above where the sun is shining, where we can see the direction, we can navigate. When we're below the waterline, we lose power. So above the waterline leadership means that you're operating from responsibility, from curiosity, learning, and growth. And below the waterline leadership means you're operating from reactivity, defensiveness, drama, threat. I write another article on this blog about a woman by the name of Dr. Karen Horney from the early 1900s, and she defined three major states that we move into when we're trying to stay safe. We'll either put up walls to protect ourselves, so we distance ourselves from those around us. We move towards people to try and please them and fix it. Or we grab hold and we try to control the situation and mold it in our way, and we hold on too tight. What we're trying to do is recognize when we get into these below the waterline patterns and transform them into something more productive that will help us achieve our vision, live our purpose more regularly. Below the waterline leadership means you're operating from reactivity, defensiveness, drama, and threat, like I said. So above the line, you ask, what can I learn from this? How is the opposite also true? What am I creating here? What do I choose now? What agreement needs to be made or cleaned up? Below the waterline language sounds very different. They should. I can't do this. It's not my fault. You made me. I'm right. They're wrong. There's no choice. One set of statements creates this feeling of agency, and the other set creates drama. We want to move towards agency and away from drama, because drama is expensive. It's expensive when we're trying to build something, but it's also expensive on our nervous system. It's expensive on our relationships, personally, professionally, in the community. Drama burns trust, slows decisions, weakens accountability, and it turns smart adults into exhausted children wearing business clothes. I shouldn't laugh at the things I write, but sometimes I find them funny. The waterline is not a morality test, so we're not moralizing, and I don't like moralizing. I like observing, and I prefer to observe and move to pragmatism and effectiveness. That's one of the ways that I prefer to operate. So let's be clear. Below the waterline is not bad. Above the waterline is not good. It's not about judging yourself. It's about locating yourself. Away from judging towards locating, awareness. Below the waterline, your nervous system is trying to protect you. You might want to fight, flee, freeze, faint, fix, justify, rationalize, gossip, blame, avoid conflict, or simply cling to an opinion like it is your life raft. You can't let go. And you're not necessarily trying to make things worse. You're simply trying to feel safe. And when we recognize the deeper motivation, how is this below the waterline behavior helping you? You can then recognize if it actually is helping you in the bigger context, because it may have helped you when it was just you, but it's probably not helping you when you're responsible for more people and more complex social, political, business environments. The problem is that so many below the waterline behaviors create the opposite of safety, which is ironic. They create control instead of trust. They create defensiveness instead of learning, and they create compliance instead of genuine commitment. Above the waterline, we have principles and standards. We tell the truth. We hold people accountable. We make the hard calls, but we do it from a different state. Having taught leadership and stewardship for over 20 years, the number one tool I've actually seen is breath. Simply, or even the double sigh. Andrew Huberman taught me that one. To recenter in our body from a place of calm, from a place of purpose, from a place of proactivity. We breathe, we change our posture. I'm coaching baseball, and one of the baseball coaches right now, he says, we're responsible for attitude and effort. Attitude is an interesting concept because attitude is the layer or the choice we place on top of our nervous system, on top of our emotions. And sometimes we can't, but other times we can. We can place that attitude on top of how we're feeling and show up contained, contained in the right way. So this is an exercise in self-containment so that we can contain the room and contain the people we lead, so that we can guide them towards the bigger picture, the bigger service. Hold on tight, but not too tight, not so tight that we're crushing their autonomy, their own agency. So when we go below the waterline and we notice, we breathe. We change our posture. We take responsibility for that state. We question the beliefs. We listen consciously to the other. We start to speak more cleanly. We do the work to make better agreements with the other. We appreciate what is working, and we create win-for-all solutions when possible, when we become useful again. That's leadership. That's stewardship. It doesn't happen immediately like that. It's dramatic in the way that it's written. Often what happens is we go below the waterline and you breathe, you notice, you do your best, and you stumble through it. And you do better than had you not noticed. But it's like being in a race, in my history in a rowing race. I'm not going to change a piece of my technique when I'm at the World Championships or the Olympics or racing a World Cup. I'm going to change my technique when I'm practicing and and the stakes are a lot lower, and I can slow things down. I can engage in deep practice. But simply by noticing that something doesn't work in an intense situation, it gives us a marker so that when time does slow down, we can do the work, sit down, journal. We can talk to our coach, our therapist, our partner. We can think through it. We can meditate on it. There's a number of different ways to continually evolve our skills as leaders, as stewards, as great managers. And it takes that time. It takes the time to actually sit down and do the thought, do the work, pen to paper. And I'm holding up a pen right now. Pen to paper is something that truly does help. Let's dig into the 3 JAMA roles. 3 JAMA roles that steal leadership capacity. We talked about them in the intro: the victim, the rescuer, the villain. Sometimes they're called the victim, the hero, and the villain. I don't like hero because there's too much positive connotation. The rescuer has a better, I think it's a better word. They came from a guy by the name of Kaplan in the 1970s, and it's been a great model, I think, for many people to recognize certain archetypes or behaviors, in themselves. So let's talk about each of them. So the victim is saying, "This is happening to me." We can usually recognize this in others before we recognize it in ourselves. So first step is recognizing in others. Next step is recognizing it in yourself and noticing when it pops up, because these pop up in each and every one of us. The victim. And many people don't, and I've done this a lot, most people don't identify with the victim. No one says they want to be the victim, and then I watch their behavior as a coach, and I think, okay, yeah, that's the victim showing up. But you got to find the right way to let people know that it is showing up. Far better for you to notice it when it's showing up in yourself. The victim sees themselves as the effect of people, circumstances, and conditions. They've given away their agency. They've given away their control. And you're in victim mode when your inner monologue sounds like, "There's nothing I can do. This always happens. You're not supporting me. No one supports me. This won't change. I've tried. I'm working so hard. It's no use. Why aren't you doing this for me?" The victim energy can sound quite reasonable at the time, and it often comes wrapped in evidence, real obstacles, real constraint, real history. But the victim position gives away your power. It waits, it complains, it whines, it argues for why change needs to happen but isn't happening or is even impossible. And it moves you into a sense of helplessness that might feel like it's realism. In leadership, being a victim is dangerous because teams can feel it. A leader in the victim archetype may still hold the title of leader, but they stop holding that creative responsibility. They become the narrator of the problem instead of the author of the next move. The rescuer. I'll just fix it. The rescuer looks a little bit more impressive. Rescuers are busy, they're helpful, they're responsive, they're needed. They jump in, they take over, they solve the issue, they smooth the tension, they carry the work, they protect people from discomfort, and everybody thanks them at first. And this is, we talked about the leadership river last podcast, and there's certain traits of the rescuer that move you up the leadership ladder, the management ladder. It gives you more responsibility, more influence, more ability to drive results. But you can't do everything. Eventually you become the bottleneck. Rescuing can create dependency. It teaches the team that pressure is someone else's problem to absorb. It keeps the rescuer important and everyone else underdeveloped. Yeah. I recently told this story of the log at a keynote speech. We were talking about carrying the log. And if you can picture carrying a log as your responsibility, there's part of the weight that's yours to carry. If if you picture two people on a log, there's part of it that's yours to carry. There's part of it that's the other person's to carry. And you need to understand, if I position myself at different fulcrum points in the log, I can carry more of the weight or less of the weight. And what you need to do is figure out what's the right balance of weight that you're carrying. How are you positioning the other person's weight appropriately? Are you carrying the right amount of weight for the both of you? So it's knowing what weight you need to pick up, what weight you need to let go, and what weight you need to help others adjust so that they can carry it more effectively. Not everything is yours to carry. The rescuer's hidden belief is often, if I don't fix this, things will fall apart. If they struggle, I'm failing them. And if I'm needed, I'm valuable. So you get a lot of identity in helping others. This is not coaching. This is control. Even control wearing a helpful jacket is what I wrote. Is pleasing as well, and trying to ensure you're being the good boy or you're being the good girl. A leader who rescues too often becomes the bottleneck that they complain about. Now the villain. Who caused this? The villain focuses on blame. Focuses on blame. So we can talk about blame, shame, and guilt. The villain is blame. The victim is shame. The rescuer acts out of guilt. The victim focuses on blame. Sometimes the blame points outward. They're so incompetent. The team is soft. I had one coach, he'd often say, my team, they're marshmallows, a bunch of marshmallows. The department never delivers. The system's messed up. They don't care. And then sometimes it points inward. I'm the problem. I should have known better. I always mess this up. Either way, the villain energy narrows the field of view. It wants a single and convenient answer. It wants a culprit. It wants certainty. And certainty feels good when pressure is high, but blame rarely builds capacity in others. It creates more dependence. You're creating traumatized people who do things for the wrong reasons, for you, for your movement, for your company, for your business, for your organization. The villain may believe they're upholding standards. Sometimes they are, but when standards lose curiosity, they become punishment. And punishment does not create ownership, it creates hiding. So people then become scared. They share less with you because those standards are so hard that they fear rejection. The people that around you fear disappointing you. And again, if people you're leading are not sharing the information that's needed, then you're missing the critical information. I've got a friend, JP Palu Fry, and he talks about the last 8%. In teams. He says people will generally share 92% of what's going on, but there's this final 8% that feels really sticky and sometimes scary for people to share. And if there's not enough psychological safety or the culture isn't right, that last 8% is not shared and risk goes up incredibly. You don't catch the problem before it shows up when you could have possibly fixed it, and the problems show up too late. So the villain in particular will really truly shut down sharing. People will share less information with you, which puts you, your team, your business, your organization, your movement at risk. So let's talk about 3 responsibility roles that build leadership capacity. So above the waterline, the same leadership pressure can be transformed into 3 responsibility roles, which are the creator, the coach, the challenger. These are not soft roles. They are not nice versions of leadership. They are stronger because they create movement without drama. How is that? Movement without drama. So let's transform the creator from helplessness into agency. The creator sees themselves as the source of their experience and the response, not the sole cause of everything, not magically responsible for every external event, not pretending constraints are fake. The creator asks, what do I want to create here? What part of this is mine to own? What choice is available now? What agreement, action, or conversation would move this forward? What am I learning? Creator energy shifts the leader from complaint into authorship. A victim says, this keeps happening to me. A creator says, here is what I'm choosing next. This is a different operating system. So think about it. The victim turns into a creator. I wonder. So next time you move into the victim space, or you're working with an employee or a colleague, or heck, even a boss who's in the victim state, can you wonder, I wonder how we can change this? That's the most effective route. The coach, from fixing to empowering. A coach seeks growth, not dependency. A coach does not abandon their people. A coach does not withhold help to make a point. A coach does not pretend people should just magically know what to do. A coach supports without stealing ownership. That's the power of the coach. The coach gives agency to the athlete. Myself, as being an athlete, having been coached by some of the most masterful coaches in the world, the best coaches show the way, empower the athlete, and set up the situation for the athlete to achieve their objectives themselves. Great coaching questions sound like, what have you tried? What do you think is the real issue? What support would help? You can think about what resources, whether it's time, money, people, education, that individual might need. What's the next responsible action? What agreement do we need? What's the decision we're getting to? What are you learning from this? The rescuer wants to jump in, give the answers too quickly. The rescuer will and this is one thing I've had to learn in my coaching practice, is to not let my coachees jump past the uncomfortable emotions, but to actually prompt and create the space for the coachee to be in an uncomfortable emotional space where their nervous system is firing a little bit more than they would want, so that they can understand the issue, ask the right questions, and come to a better conclusion or awareness of what needs to change. A coach creates capacity, and that distinction matters, especially when we're talking to founders, executives, managers, senior leaders whose calendars are already full of problems they know they should not personally own anymore. If your team cannot grow without you, if they cannot grow without you fixing everything, you do not have the leverage you need. You have dependency. So let's talk about the challenger, moving from blame to growth. The challenger tells the truth in service of growth. This may be the most understood role of the three. A challenge is not a villain with better branding. The difference is blame. It's more agency, less blame. The villain will attack, they will judge, and they will search for fault. The challenger simply names reality pragmatically, calmly, kindly. They'll raise the standards and they'll invite responsibility. A challenger might say, that commitment was missed. That impact on the team was real. This pattern cannot continue. I believe you can grow from this. Let's get clear on what will change. What support do you need, and what ownership will you take? The challenger has a bit more distance from the people they're leading, and if you're even being a challenger to yourself, a distance from yourself. It's the firm yet kind leader. It's not harsh, it's clean. I worked with an engineering leader who'd often say, clarity is kindness. Clarity is kindness. I need to be clear without contempt. Teams do not need leaders who avoid hard truths. They need leaders who can tell the truth without contempt. That is challenger energy. It's stewardship even. How do you remove contempt? You know the bigger picture. You understand the values of how you want to operate and the purpose for which you and the others are serving. And as you sit into your purpose and you sit into that future vision, you can show up and tell the truth with far less contempt. When you're only focused on yourself and your personal needs and the situation of your control, of your lack, of your not having enough, that's when contempt and blame really truly comes in. You take high responsibility and you don't feel like you're getting the recognition or space you want. That's a pattern I see a lot. A real world leadership moment. Imagine this. Okay, this is storytelling. It's 4:47 p.m. on a Thursday. A client deliverable is due tomorrow. Your project lead missed a handoff. The team is tired. You are already behind. The client is impatient. You open the update and you feel the heat rise. Below the waterline, 3 options show up fast. The victim says, of course this happened. No one follows through unless I chase them down. The rescuer says, oh my God, I'm just going to stay here late and do it myself again. The villain says, this is unacceptable. Clearly they don't care. These people are useless. Everyone has a point. Each one will probably make the system worse. The victim complains but does not lead. The rescuer saves the day but weakens the agency of the team. The villain attacks the person, creates fear. Above the waterline, the leadership move is different. The creator says, I may have created some ambiguity in the handoff. I wasn't clear. I need to clarify what is mine and what is theirs. So am I being clear enough, is what the creator says. The coach says, are there any questions I can ask to see what actually happened, to confirm what happened before I assume the story? And the challenger says, we need to name it. Name the miscommitment and reset the standard and ensure that we're communicating that regularly and clearly and precisely. No ambiguity. Now the conversation sounds like this. Here's what I'm seeing. The handoff was missed and the client deliverable is now at risk. I want to understand what happened. And then you listen. I also want to be clear that this pattern cannot continue. What support do you need tonight? And what agreement can we make to ensure this doesn't repeat? This is above the waterline leadership. Clear, direct, responsible, human. No drama required. So there's a 90-second waterline reset I put in here. So when you feel yourself dropping below the waterline, we don't start with a speech, we start with our body. We're grounded in the physical. That's a big part of values-driven achievement built for hard leadership, stewardship, management starts in the body. So first we breathe. We're grounded in the physical before we respond. Not because breathing solves the issue, but because it changes our nervous system and creates that space to choose proactivity versus drama. Notice your posture and change it. Sit up, stand, unclench your jaw, relax your shoulders, both feet on the ground. A threatened body posture creates threatened thinking. So we shift the body fast. Then we locate the role. Am I in the victim, rescuer, or villain? No shame, no blame, no guilt. Just notice. Victim, I'm powerless. Rescuer, I'm fixing. Villain, something's wrong. Naming the role gives us some distance from it. And then we try to say, where am I moving to? And question the story. So what am I believing right now? Is this completely true? How could the opposite be true? What data am I ignoring? What feeling am I avoiding? Your story might contain truth, but it's probably not the whole truth. And then, we shift from the victim to the creator, the rescuer, from the coach, from the villain to the challenger, and we choose some kind of responsibility sentence. I'm taking responsibility for, I'm choosing to, I agree to, I created. What I hear you saying is, what I feel is, what I want to learn is. This is the language that moves influence, it moves understanding, it moves buy-in, and it creates power, and it does not rely on force. We want power, we want to use more power, less force. Below the waterline traps you in drama and uses too much force. Above the waterline gives you your power and returns your choice, returns your agency. So again, I linked to the worksheet, which is designed for reflection, that you can download. You can use it when you feel calm and enlightened, but it's probably more useful when you're annoyed and you have something that you're replaying. When you have a trigger moment where you have a negative leadership interaction, you can download the worksheet, write through it, or just load it up and write through on your journal. What needs to change? What needs to show up in it? And what you're seeing. So here's another form of reflection. You can think through it as you're walking along. So pick a recent trigger. So choose one situation from the last week where you felt reactive, defensive, dramatic, or threatened. Then identify your below the waterline pattern. Where did you go? Victim, villain, rescuer, blame, shame, guilt. Where was it? Now, what's the above the line shift? You put yourself in that situation. Remember, breath, readjust posture, name it. Call it name it to contain it. Victim to creator, rescuer to coach, villain to challenger. Then make an agreement with yourself. One, insight is useful and being able to enable it, but if you actually make an agreement right now, which means that you're changing your identity. You're saying, I'm agreeing that I'm going to be this person. I am this person. I choose to be this person. I'm going to step into the identity of the more effective leader, the more effective manager, a stronger steward. So make an agreement on how you want this shift to show up more effectively. One of the benefits I've seen with this above the waterline, below the waterline model is that it creates common language on teams. It makes waterline awareness more normal. A team that can talk about the waterline has more advantage, not because everybody stays above it, but the advantage is recovery. A team with waterline awareness says, oh, I think we're getting below the line. I'm noticing blame creeping in. I'm moving into rescue mode. Oh, I'm telling myself a story. Can we just pause, get a bit more curious here? It creates a common language for the team to regulate itself, to regulate one another, and it gives people a shared map. A shared metaphor, a shared understanding. And without a map or common understanding, teams will personalize everything. And they'll make conflict about character instead of just patterns. And they turned missed agreements into moral failures. They confuse urgency with effectiveness. So with a map, teams can recover faster. They can separate the person from the past, from the pattern. They can name the role without shame. They can return to responsibility. That's culture work, not the poster kind, the real kind. So above the waterline leadership is not about being endlessly calm. It's not about being always agreeable or avoiding conflict or pretending everything's fine. It's about being aware and having a high standard. It's becoming responsible for your state, your story, your agreements, and the next actions. And it asks more of you. It asks you to stop outsourcing your mood to others. It asks you to stop confusing blame with accountability. It asks you to stop rescuing people from the growth they need. And it asks you to stop calling your story the truth before you've questioned it. Is that hard? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes. Because when people and leaders move above the waterline, teams get more honest, more capable, and more resilient. People stop wasting energy on drama and they start using pressure as information. And pressure, handled well, becomes fuel. Thank you for listening. Again, my name is Adam Kreek, founder of Built for Hard. I'm on a mission to lift up leaders, managers, founders, and provide the information, the knowledge, the coaching, the pathway to get more of what you want and less of what you don't want. I'm a big believer in the power of stewardship. I believe that the world doesn't need more leaders. There's enough people who have the ability to influence in forceful ways. What the world needs is more stewards. And that's what we're doing with this movement. That's what we're doing with this podcast. That's what we're doing with values-driven achievement and Built for Hard. We're building better people to do more important and impactful things. So thank you very much. If this has been useful, please share it with anyone else who might benefit from it. Drop me a note or a line through the website, valuesdrivenachievement.com, where there's more blogs, more information. And the interactivity and any feedback you give is certainly valuable to me. So I do appreciate anything that you feel like sending back my way. Take care.